Torrential downpours lashed Australia's east coast on Monday, forcing thousands to flee the worst flooding in decades. Around 18,000 residents were told to evacuate their homes as days of relentless rainfall caused rivers in Australia's most populous state, New South Wales, to rise to their highest levels in 30 years. Emergency warnings are in place across the state, including Port Macquarie, Kempsey and Sydney's west. Heavy rains are expected to continue until Wednesday.
This is what days of relentless downpour looks like. A deluge not seen in 5 decades here in New South Wales. Emergency services have been inundated with nearly 10,000 calls and have conducted more than 500 rescues so far. And this is what they're up against. Water so high and forceful, a 3-bedroom cottage was seen floating through. Crews have also been called in to get stranded cattle to safety. In the town of Windsor, northwest of Sydney, residents are used to floods this time of year, but nothing like this.
It's very shocking because I haven't seen it like this before.
In 1990 was the last time that I remember having a really big flood.
It's hard to tell. This is the newly built Windsor Bridge. It's barely a year old and was meant to withstand heavy flooding.
There are around 15,000 people who've been evacuated from the mid-north coast from their homes. In the Nepean Richmond Valley region or Hawkesbury region, there have been about 3,000 evacuations to date. 19 evacuation orders have been issued and potentially more to come. 34 areas or 30 up to 38 areas have already been regarded as natural disaster areas, which means people in those communities and local government in those communities can get assistance. That means up to $1,000 each for adults and $400 for children. And we thank the Commonwealth Government for working with the state government and making that available. The situation is evolving. The heavy rainfalls are going to continue, and we are now seeing alerts issued for weather warnings for the Illawarra and South Coast. And I just want to say to everybody across the state who is currently living in fear and anxiety that all of us are thinking of you. Some communities who were battered by the bushfires are now being battered by the floods. Deep drought prior to that, and I don't know any time in our state's history when we've had these extreme weather conditions in such quick succession in the middle of a pandemic. So they are challenging times for New South Wales, but I think we've also demonstrated our capacity to be resilient. But I know for many people, they will feel like it's breaking point. When you've been through 3 or 4 incidents which are life-changing on top of each other, it can make you feel like you're at breaking point. But please know we're thinking of you and we're getting support as much as we can.
Rising. This is a live look at the Windsor Bridge in the northwest of the city. It's newly built to survive floods, but it's under threat right now. And the rain just keeps falling. This is a live look at Sydney Harbour. Up to 70 millimetres is forecast for the day ahead.
Hammered by record rain. The main concerns now are Port Macquarie in the north to the New South Wales south coast. Sydney is right in the centre of the danger zone, and this is why. The SES has released this animation showing how floodwaters can spread quickly across the vast floodplains in the Hawkesbury, Penrith and Blacktown area. The water fills the basin a bit like a bathtub where 150,000 people live. The most recent evacuation orders are for the western part of Jamison Town, western parts of Penrith and the northern end of Mulgoa.
Oh, we're just inundated at the moment, and the water's still rising. It's come up about a foot in the last hour. Yeah, this is the worst I've seen it. Last year, just after Christmas, it was pretty bad as well, but not this bad.
Torrential downpours have turned roads into rivers and fields into lakes. Homes have been swamped and emergency crews have responded to thousands of calls for help. For the first time in years, Sydney's main reservoir is overflowing, putting suburbs at risk of flooding. Across New South Wales, Australia's most populous state, residents in many low-lying areas have been told to leave. Communities to the north of Sydney have been badly affected.
In parts of the mid and north coast regions which are experiencing the 1 in 100 year event, there's been sustained damage to infrastructure, there's been sustained damage to how people communicate and move around, and I just want to say to everybody in New South Wales who's experiencing that fear and that anxiety that our thoughts are with you and we'll get assistance to you as soon as we can.
Oh my goodness.
Near the town of Taree, a house was washed away down a river by floodwaters. It's a day the owners will never forget.